Hi everyone, it's Littenherz. I thought I'm doing a response to a video I saw today by Rainfire Dreaming by Ruth on her channel, and she did a tag which she called the author tag. And this I think it's a relatively old tag. It's about a year old or so. And the Pagan Scholar, Travis, did it also, or did it too. And after Ruth jumped on board and after I watched her video, I thought, okay, I guess I will also do it. So yeah, let's start. There are 10 questions, and I should start at the beginning. Question number 1: where's your favorite place to write? Yeah, where's my favorite place to write? Okay. I often thought it would be outside, but sometimes it's not so easy to find a spot where you have, finding a spot in nature where you can be on your own and write and watch nature and so on. So I tried it once, and it was really quite difficult to find a place where no one just came by and thought what she is doing there. Normally I write, wherever it fits, I should say. When I have my notebook or so, some paper to write on. Sometimes I just sit here on this area here, this platform my boyfriend built, and and then I just write, basically. Sometimes I also sit on my desk. I love to handwrite, so this is quite, it takes time, but it's also quite relaxing process. So basically, to answer the question, I'm doing it everywhere. So here on the platform, up in my bed, and so on. One of the most productive writings I did was on the tram, actually, or on the subway, how do you want to call it? I used to write when I came from work, driving home, and these times were the most productive writings ever, I have to say. I think it has to do with the kind of movement, because when I'm walking, a lot of more ideas pop into my head, or I go through scenes or something like that. I did that since I was a little child, making my own kind of head cinema, how I call it. And it's always other people can't approach me when I'm in this state. I'm on autopilot, so I can walk perfectly without getting hit by a car, but other people could wave at me or shout at me. I won't hear them. And someone also said I look quite when I'm in that state. So basically, this movement factor is really important, I guess. And sometimes I would love to have some kind of a transcription of my thoughts and so on. So mostly I can't write it all down, because it would be dangerous in traffic. But try that. Try writing on the tram or on the bus. Maybe the tram is better, because bus is not so much in line, if you know what I mean. Bus could be a bit bumpy or so. Yeah, so basically my favorite place to write is nearly everywhere, but my most favorite and productive place to write was the tram. So coffee or tea? Yeah. Tea. Although I also have to say coffee, but not coffee in the normal sense. So I don't drink usual coffee, because I can't process the caffeine or coffeine. I don't know how to call it or how to pronounce it in English. So I drink how you call it, I call it sometimes fake coffee because it's made from barley or something like that, or from rye. And I really like that. Okay, this coffee won't keep you awake, but yeah, if you want something like that, or if I want something like that, I drink my black tea or my Earl Grey with milk and so on, and a bit of honey. So mostly tea, I have to say, mostly tea. Favorite book of all time. All the favorites, how we love them, all the favorites. And it's always so nasty to pinpoint it to one book. And I won't pinpoint it to one book, actually. Like Ruth, I think this changes a lot. This changes with the kind of stage we are in, how we feel, and what interests we have. So certain books I won't read again. There are books I read over and over at certain times. And there are certainly, one of those books is certainly, I have to catch it, is certainly The Lord of the Rings. This was a book that came relatively late to me, I have to say. I started to read it when I started reading it when the first movie came out. After the first movie came out, I had already read The Hobbit, and I thought, okay, now I will start with The Lord of the Rings. Before that, I was quite scared because of the thickness of this book. This chunky book scared me away, because this was something I was also afraid of when I was a child, because my mom was what we call Leseratte in a reading rat. She was a bookworm when she was a child, when she was all her life, basically. And she tried to impose that onto me, but unfortunately, she always gifted me with very thick books, and this was some kind of too much of a challenge. So, oh my gosh, I have to read all that. Mom wants me to read that. I don't want to read that much. This changed when a cousin of mine gifted me the first book of a book series. This first book I don't have anymore. The second I have. This is this year. It's from a German author. The author is called Ilse Kleberger. And this book is called, the first book was called Our Grandma. And this is Vacation with Grandma. And this is the craziest grandma ever. And I was so delighted because also there were this kind of illustrations in there, and I loved it. I always was very visual, and the things I started to approach, or how I started to approach stories, were in form of audio plays or cassettes, audio cassettes. So I had a lot of fairy tales on audio cassette, and there was a series. I think this series was also over Europe, and I guess also I'm not quite sure if this series was also in Australia or something. This was a cassette plus a little magazine, or not magazine, a bit bigger, some kind of a booklet or so, where you had illustrations on the stories, and the story were printed down, but it was also narrated on audio cassette by different narrators. And this was called, in English, it was called The Storyteller, or The Little Storyteller, I'm not quite sure. So cassette plus book, or booklet, magazine, how you want to call that. And this was something that came out every 2 weeks or so. And I was collecting this very hard and loved it. There were so many gorgeous stories in there. There was a special Christmas story thing where also the Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens was retold, mostly shorter, but a lot of very famous fantasy stories and so on, or stories in general, like The Wind and the Willows. Oh, The Wind and the Willows. But I was always, I needed this both. I needed the visuals and to read it, and later it changed. Still, I love good illustrated books. I still love to collect. I don't have that much, but I still love to look through children's books or children's picture books. Love that. So basically, favorite book of all time, came back to that. I would say something like that and something like that. This is from Peter S. Beagle, The Last Unicorn. I loved the story when I was a little child. I loved the animated movie that came out, and basically was able to retell it line by line. And then when I was about 13 or 14, I got the book and was totally captivated and had to read it over and over again, because it was such an elegant writing, and I loved how Beagle is portraying the unicorn. So basically not a unicorn, not something like horse with a horn on it, but something totally different, and I loved it. And I also read there was a following book, and there's a third one, but this is something I haven't read. No, it wasn't a following book. It was also a book about unicorns that was also by Peter S. Beagle. The thing is, I hate this cover. This is the thing with these, with this publisher, Hobbit Press, it is called, and this is the same publisher like this, but they improved on the covers, but they had always such kind of strange blah, and the color is blah. Sorry. Yeah, another book I have to share, of course. Michael Ende. I don't know, Michael End. The Neverending Story. One of my all-time favorites. And also one of my all-time favorite authors, but this will be in another question. So, fourth questions, NaNoWriMo, yes or no? Hard to answer. I would answer it in German. Jein. Both. Yes and no in one word. Jein. I have to say, I never did NaNoWriMo. I considered doing it. Although I'm a bit afraid of this kind of task, to do this kind of amount of words within this particular amount of time. If you hear something snoring in the background, that's my dog, by the way. So I basically, I'm sometimes a bit scared about these deadlines. I love this quote. I don't know if I can recall it exactly. The quote by Douglas Adams. I love the whooshing sounds of deadlines when they go by. So I have to say, I always stress a bit, and the best ideas comes in the very last moment. So I already published a few things in independent with independent publishers, and also participated in some kind of writing competitions and so on. But it was always a struggle to do this kind of amount of words in this amount of time. But I still would consider it, but I wouldn't go exactly that. I would dedicate the month of November exactly to NaNoWriMo. Maybe I would do like Ruth did from Rainfire Dreaming. I would perform my own NaNoWriMo just to get a feel for it and to have something finished at the end. Normally, I don't write long stories. I'm a short story writer and love that. With longer stories, sometimes I have struggle because I tend to lose a bit the focus of the story, and this is something I admire with most of authors too, especially when you have something like that, but you have a lifetime to accomplish something like that. So basically, short story writer, love the short story, never had problems with short stories. I love to write them. So basically NaNoWriMo, I would consider it, so I can only answer with Jein. Fifth question, genre you would write if you had no restrictions. Fantastical stories, fairy tales. I love to write fairy tales. Magical stories, basically. I loved some fantasy stories, but mostly, although I love The Lord of the Rings, mostly I was scared away by other fantasy stories, mostly because, like when I was a child, they are epic long. So when I had a friend of mine who loved to gift me the first book of a, I don't know, 30-book series or something, and I thought, oh, never, I will never ever finish that. I read some of Marion Zimmer Bradley's dark cover, I don't know, dark cover novels, and loved that, but I haven't read every dark cover novel. So basically, I love stories like a Neverending Story, where there was some magical things going on. We have one book or maybe 3 books or so. Okay, I read Harry Potter and was quite captivated by the series. I recently not reread it, but reheard it because I have all the audiobooks and love the audiobooks and still love them. And I want to get my hands on the illustrated Harry Potter books that are now coming out. The first 2 are already out, and I was able to look through volume one, so the Philosopher's Stone, and I love this magical world she was creating, the depth of this world she was creating, and I guess this is a thing that I also find fascinating. Fantastical stories or story lines or story arcs like Terry Pratchett. I also have to add, I think I have it here. I will try to fetch it. I love Terry Pratchett. Okay, Terry Pratchett is also someone who... I don't get it at the moment. It's too high. So you see in my comfy clothes here. So Terry Pratchett, I also love to read. Although at first I was struggling because there is no kind of, you don't know which volume to start. So when I approached the series, I started with basically with some favorite characters of mine and went with that. Another wonderful world a German author was creating is the how it's called, how is he called, Walter Mörs, and he was writing the 13.5 lives of Captain Blue Bear, and he invented this whole continent named Samonia, and he's hilariously funny. A lot of people are, or the English-speaking people are comparing him to Terry Pratchett. To some degree, I would say yes, and to some degree, he is his own guy. So basically, all these kind of stories in this kind of fantastical worlds are something I would really love to create or love to write, actually. Although at the moment I'm starting to write again, but this is actually not a fantasy story, not a fairy tale, and not not magical, not in that sense magical, but sometimes you also want to write something else. Sixth question. If you could have any superpower, what would it be? I guess it would be Avatar from the Nickelodeon series. You know this guy, Aang, who was able to control all the 4 elements, water band, earth band, fire band, and air band. This was something I really love to rewatch the series over and over again, because it's really, really well made. And I love the idea of this kind of manipulating the elements and being sometimes very creative with it. So I guess I would love to have these kind of superpowers. Maybe flying, although I'm not so fond of flying. But maybe when I would have the superpower, I would be totally comfortable with flying. But no, there wasn't any superhero where I would say a conventional superhero like Marvel superheroes, where I would say, this is a kind of power I would love to have. No, maybe something from the X-Men or so. No, actually, I guess I would love to be an avatar. So, favorite author. Okay, you heard it. Michael Ende, of course. And of course, I can't pick one. I also have to pick Peter Spiegel and also Tolkien. And there are many more, I guess. But when I would say this, especially this man, because he is long gone. And this is something I always think, I'm always sad, because he was writing such great stories and also funny rhymes and so on. He was a really great author and great guy, and I really miss reading new stuff from him. But we also have very great German authors, like what I said, Walter Mörs or Cornelia Funke, that you might know, or Cornelia Funke, I don't know how you pronounce her in English, who did the Inkheart series. So also great content and wonderful. So it's really hard to pick only one author, because there are so many out there, and there are so many books and authors to read, so it's hard. What kind of music do you listen to when you write? So, music with no lyrics. I love to listen to music, not always. But I found when I have some kind of relaxing, maybe also, relaxing music with nature sounds in it, or with or something around along the line of meditative music. This is sometimes quite beneficial for my writing. It depends on what I'm writing. When I, what I said, start my cinema in my head cinema to entertain myself when I was a child, and when I was a teen, and when I was older. I love to listen to music on my Walkman and have, so to speak, the soundtrack to the images that I created or started popping into my head. But when I'm writing, there shouldn't be any kind of words in the music. So basically something like guitar music or so, or something like piano music. Violin is also quite fitting. But basically I listen to music when I'm writing, not always, like I said, but it can support the quality of your writing. That's for sure. It's not for everyone, but I love it. If you could live anywhere, where would it be? Yeah, I always say to my boyfriend, we live in the wrong place here for so many things. He is a hang glider, and it's quite flat here in the area. Okay, he only has to drive about 30 minutes, 35 minutes, where he has an area to fly. But I also sometimes think I would love to live in an area more, what we say in German, ländlich. But I also know that when you live in an area which is not so urban anymore, you definitely need a car, need to move. But I sometimes would love to have a much more greener environment. It is green here, I have to say. We're urban, but still have it quite calm here where we live, in a little bit outside area of my city. In the city center, I wouldn't, sorry, but there are really some kind of top cities, top places in my city where people would love to live, because there is the life, there's everything going on, cafes and and every kind of people. I think it's okay for some people, not for me. I see why it's fascinating, but I would certainly get quite easily overwhelmed after a while. So I would love to live somewhere green, where I have my kind of green area, land or something, and maybe a garden or so, where I can put my hands in the soil or something like that. I'm rereading at the moment, or watching, how you want to call it, Anne of Green Gables, and I would love to live on Green Gables. Oh, I would love Prince Edward Island, but I know, of course, Prince Edward Island doesn't look anymore like that in the book also. But something green and something a bit more natural, I would say. But as it is, I am where I am. When I was a teenager, I wanted to emigrate. Is it that the right word? I wanted to live in Australia, but Australia. Okay, my mom always joked with me and said, "You don't stand any heat. How you want to live in Australia? Well, I will do it anyway." Yeah, so maybe I would say today, maybe in Sweden or so, or Norway or something like that. Certainly, I would love to live somewhere near the sea. So we were on vacation 2 weeks ago on a North Sea island, on a German North Sea island, and it was just pure bliss and paradise. And I so miss this island, and I will so love to return there next year for some kind of retreat. So let's the last question. What do you do when you get writer's block? Obviously, I don't write then. No, I guess when it's about writer's block in terms of creative writing, story writing or so, this is something it's about the fear of failure, actually. And I started to write different things. So I'm writing a lot for maybe more blog posts or mini blog posts like on Instagram, or for workshops I'm doing, or I did last year or the last 2 years. I was writing a lot, especially in English. And this also helps to lose the fear of the blank page. So basically, I write anyway, but other stuff basically. And sometimes you have to wait until you feel it coming back to you, writing something completely fictional. And sometimes sometimes you also give into your demons, to your inner demons. At the moment, I'm experiencing that with drawing. I really come back out of my shell, I have to say, and enjoy the process of doing what I loved for so long, because this was another passion of mine. Besides writing, this was also one of my first passions. It was the passion of drawing, or the passion to draw, to paint. more drawing actually. And the fear of failure really kept me away from pencils too long. And at the moment, I don't know what it was, why I jumped on this train, this little challenge that Molly Roberts from Her Speak started on Instagram and on Facebook, this 25 days of doodle mess. I don't know what it was, but I just jumped in without any doubts or musings or background noise that was telling me, oh no, maybe you will fail. I just did it. And sometimes this is something which also works with writing. So there were my 10 author tag questions. Maybe you want also to join. Those of you who write want to jump on the author bandwagon. I would love to see responses here. So many blessings. Bye.